Hello, I'm Matteo, the Chief Mobile Opinionist at Tech Travel Geeks, and this is the Tech Travel Geeks long-term review of the Oppo Reno2, as filmed and edited by our Chief Aperture Officer, Lukash. The Oppo Reno2 is a high-end, mid-range smartphone from Oppo, the Chinese smartphone manufacturer. The Oppo Reno2 may on paper look a bit similar to the Xiaomi Mi 9T we reviewed last year. There's a pop-up selfie camera, this one has a shark fin design, it's a glass sandwich with an aluminium frame, but that's pretty much where the similarities end. The screen on the Oppo Reno2 is a 6.5 inch one. That's an AMOLED screen. It's a lovely, lovely screen. Having no notch really does immerse you in content, whether you're watching video or playing games. Now, one of the key things I was using the Oppo Reno2 for was travelling in Asia. The things I was really needing were good battery life, decent cameras, and a nice screen to consume content on. The bonus here is that the Oppo Reno2 has a Courage port, that's a 3.5mm audio jack, so there's no messing around with Bluetooth and having to charge an extra device if needed. The Oppo Reno2's back is stunning. It's a glass back with no camera bump. This is a true feat of industrial design and engineering. Speaking of cameras, the Oppo Reno2 has a pretty impressive camera setup. There's a primary 48 megapixel sensor that in default settings will output 12 megapixel pictures. There's a 13 megapixel telephoto lens, that's the equivalent of 2 times optical zoom. There's also an 8 megapixel ultra wide lens, which you can also use for macro shots. And there's an extra 2 megapixel black and white lens and sensor, which are mainly for depth perception and shadow detection. The camera has dual LED flash, does a pretty good job with HDR photography, and more importantly has Oppo's renowned night mode. We found this night mode particularly impressive both in Shenzhen and Singapore when shooting the amazing architecture in those two cities. Video on the Oppo Reno2 can record 4K, as well as 1080p. Obviously 4K was limited to 30 frames per second, but 1080p video can go up to 60 frames per second, and is stabilized. Yes, that main sensor, the 48 megapixel one, has optical image stabilization, as well as electronic image stabilization. That selfie camera we mentioned earlier is a motorized pop-up one. It's a 16 megapixel sensor, which is quite wide in terms of the amount of selfie space that it captures. This is great not only for video calling, but also for those all-important selfies. In terms of connectivity, the Oppo Reno2 has everything you'd expect of a modern, high-end smartphone. As well as Wi-Fi and all the usual connectivity, it has Bluetooth 5, so if you have a snazzy pair of new earphones, like the Urbanista Paris, you'll be able to connect to them reliably and using less battery power. Positioning was good. I was using it both for navigating the streets of Singapore and Shenzhen and playing a bit of Pokemon Go. Extra bonus on the Oppo Reno2 is that it does have an FM radio if you plug earphones into the Courage port. Overall, my experience, both using the Oppo Reno2's amazing cameras and the smartphone in general, is excellent. The Oppo Reno2 is a true flagship, in all but a few specifications and pricing. Speaking of pricing, you can still buy the Oppo Reno2 from the Carphone warehouse in the UK, and it will set you back around about £400. Those £400 will give you a powerful smartphone with 8GB of RAM, a 4000 mAh battery, which performs extremely well in our experience, as well as a Snapdragon 730G chipset. Yes, that's a Qualcomm chipset, which is very similar to the one we saw in the Xiaomi Mi 9T, but is clocked slightly faster and has a slightly improved graphics chipset. To most users that won't make much of a difference, but it is, overall with Oppo's operating system, ColorOS, a very smooth and reliable experience. I really enjoyed using the Oppo Reno2 and can thoroughly recommend it. The battery life is excellent, the cameras were great, and I really enjoyed the overall experience, though some people may find it frustratingly Apple-like in some ways. But if you're on the market and have a budget of around about £400, we can't recommend the Oppo Reno2 enough. If you don't already, please do subscribe to the Tech Travel Geeks here on YouTube. We'll be popping some relevant links in the description, and if you would like to, give us some feedback in the comments section or drop us a like. But for now, thanks for watching this long-term review of the Oppo Reno2. Goodbye from us.